Hi, my name's Eric from Worlds Overrun, and I'm here with my partner James from Halden Creations. I want to show you guys how we find the center of gravity of an object. Now, this is just a general check for these things. It's not 100% foolproof, but it does a damn good job. And I learned this a long time ago when I was sculpting in clay for production. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of gravity based off of the mass of each part from, I think it's either 4 or 5 angles. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to import a sphere, and I'm going to use that as my reference object. And then I'm going to separate it from the main object and turn the main object on and make it transparent. And basically, I'm going to look for the mass. Now, I'm going to shrink this down so we can actually bring this in pretty tight. But basically, I can say that the relative center of the object is here. Now, if I check from this side, I can guesstimate where the relative center is, which is right about here. So we can tell right now that this is a pretty good center. It's relatively the same here. I'm going to move it out a little bit. It's a little high, but we can pretty much just sort of look around this and see what this looks like. So this is roughly the center of gravity, or the center of mass on this thing. We do have some tall parts here, which means I could pull this up. And basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the average point of the object. Now the reason for this is that if I go ahead and I bring in, I'm going to bring in another object. I'm going to bring in a cone, or I'm going to bring in a cylinder. I'm going to make a cone with it. And this cone should be relatively kind of like an equilateral triangle. So we're going to collapse edge loop, poly loop. We want this cone to be as equilateral as possible, because what this is going to tell us is if this part is going to flip over. So I'm going to set this to the relative center of the other object, which is kind of like so. And I can see that the base is partially outside of the center. And we have pieces that are going to go on the outside of that, but I could also add mass out here as kind of a counterbalance for a cantilever. And that tells me roughly where the center of the mass is for this object. Now I might be able to move this over if we could create a little more volume out here, or what have you. But this piece is a little unstable. Not that it's unusable, but it's a little unstable. If we add in our edge pieces, which I don't have in this scene, those extend out and give us a little bit more stability on this side, and would probably solve my center of mass issue. But and also adding this to other tile systems would also help with that. But that's generally how I go about finding that, and I can usually see it without really getting too deep into like what I'm doing here. This is just sort of an example of, hey, this is where the center of the balance point is for the piece.
All right, question, Eric. With the being that far over the edge, being out of balance, what would you do to counterbalance it?
Well, one of the first things I might do is the fastest thing to do would be to move the base tile, which I have an extra one here. There we go. Would be to move the base tile underneath, fully underneath the, oops, don't want to move that way. Fully underneath the cone, and that would completely change the layout of the piece. I could also add material to the outside edge, which is why we have the edge pieces, so that we can, because this piece is intended to go alongside a number of other pieces. Simply by adding another 100mm tile, just one, would give this plenty of stability for playing with. and it also answers that question in another way here. If you wanted this to be a standalone piece, we recommend using the edge tiles anyway, because they just extend the base tile. So there's really three options. Well, there's four. Add some more volume over here, add edge tiles, or add a secondary tile. And the last option really is to change the format of the piece and then swing the upper mass directly over the middle of the original tile. The only downside to doing that would be that you'd lose some of the dynamic nature of the piece. It's not extreme dynamics with this swooping angle, but it would really kind of limit you on how that could look, because I could probably gain an inch or two on the corner, but that's
and that's not a whole lot.
That's not a whole.
The edge clips would accommodate that, would equal that anyway.
Right. Yeah. If I had the edge clips in here for those looking at this, they extend out past this corner here, and they come down and go around, and they basically make the tile. I don't want to say double in size, but they definitely make the tile significantly larger. So the tile,
so it's like a picture frame.
Right. So the tile ends up being like this, with the edge clips and the end caps, and it basically finishes off the piece so that you don't have the open lock holes showing up with the piece on the table, so that this piece can be a piece of scatter terrain instead of.
So does it wind up having a boxed edge, or is it a sloping edge?
It's a sloping edge so that it meets down to the table,
Okay.
And it gives it a more aesthetically pleasing look as a singular piece.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that we kind of do when we're designing pieces here. We look for the center of mass. It's the same thing that we do over at Collapse. And any good sculptor is going to be able to find the center of gravity based on the mass, because this object, although it's 3D printed, it's all the same medium, it's all the same material. So you're not dealing with great big hollows or great big changes in volume. It's not like mixed medium. If someone were to do mixed medium with this and add a lot of material up here for some reason or another, the thing would become.
You might want to explain the term mixed media, because some of the viewers may not know what that means.
For us, mixed medium is kind of like saying, hey, I want to take and add some green stuff, or I want to flock it, or I want to go ahead and add putties and glues and clays and paints, and metal chain, and basically mixed media is using something other than the base medium or the base substance. In art, it's when you mix any multiple things like colored pencils, paint, and I don't know, graphite or chalk, or something like that. That's mixed medium, or even yarn and
the mixed medium is basically bringing the object to life.
Yeah. If somebody took this and just painted it, I wouldn't really call it mixed medium. But most of the people that I'm really interested in seeing what they do with these kinds of things, the true mixed medium guys, they flock it, they glue on grasses, they glue on mosses and then chains, and they add their own greebles and nernies, they add all sorts of weird things to it. They basically mod the piece heavily. That's mixed medium. So yeah. But there's a lot that goes into these things, and I wanted to share that with you guys so that you guys can see how this piece is going to operate when you get it on your table. I want to thank James for coming out and talking with me today about this piece that we're working on, which is the floating island from our current Kickstarter campaign. And this is Eric Ashley from Worlds on Run, and I'll catch you guys later.